Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Nemeth Report podcast. I'm Dr. Tammy Nemeth. I'm an energy historian, analyst, and consultant, and I'll be your host. Today, I am joined by the incredible Stu Turley, the founder, creator, and host of Energy Newsbeat. Hey, Stu, how you doing?
Oh, hey, it is a fantastic honor to be here on your podcast and Substack.
Yeah, this is great. And, for the people who are maybe tuning in for the first time and don't watch us on Mondays when we do the Energy Realities podcast, can you just give the viewers, listeners, a little bit of information about yourself?
Oh, you bet. Hey, I'll tell you, it's a lot of fun being a podcast host. I was going to retire, Dr. Nemeth, and be a college professor, but now I'm a podcast host for the Energy Newsbeat. We actually last year we ended up with 2.5 million listens, 1 million downloads. We average about 1.75 to 2 million people per month through the channels. So it's a lot of fun, and being wrong a lot doesn't get you very far. But I did have a fantastic compliment from some of the great Canadian friends up there, and had some folks from the Trans-Canada Pipeline actually say, we like listening to the Energy Newsbeat podcast because entertainment coupled with good knowledge is what we want. I was like, that is absolutely way cool.
Yeah, sometimes podcasts can be a little bit boring, and you are anything but boring, Stu.
Well, thank you. I feel sorry for my wife. We've been married 40 years, and that poor woman is a saint.
Wow, 40 years. Congratulations. That's amazing. That's amazing.
Yeah, that poor woman.
So we're just going to jump in and talk about some energy things that have been happening over the past little while. And of course, I would say since February, the news has been dominated by the ongoing situation in the Middle East. And we've had lots of conversations about this on the Monday Energy Realities podcast. And David Blackman and Irina Slav are like, can we talk about something else? But it's had these ripple effects on global energy, and it's had significant impacts on the United States and Europe, of course, and the Middle East and other places, the European Union, Canada. And I'm wondering, from your perspective at Energy Newsbeat, you cover a lot of this stuff. What to you are the most critical developments that you're tracking right now with respect to the Middle East? Because supposedly there's an agreement. Maybe there's an agreement. We're not sure. What's your take?
Do you remember the wonderful Bill Murray movie Groundhog Day?
Absolutely.
I feel like I'm Groundhog Day Bill Murray. And let me back the stage up just a little bit. And he's standing there going, the Iranians are going, we control the state. We control the strait. The Strait of Hormuz is ours. And I'm like, that's the worst Iranian accent I could come up with. It almost sounds like a Godfather out of New York or something. But we have them claiming it. They got caught. We have a ceasefire deal that is not signed by the IRGC, and we've got they've now claimed, when you take a look at the IRGC's new map, they've reached out to where the UAE's exit port is in their pipeline. 1.7 million barrels per day is what the UAE has been able to export in the Gulf of Oman,
Yeah.
even not through the strait. They've claimed that. So now we caught them mining the strait. So here's where we've got, you normally had 20% of the world's oil going through the strait at any given time. The US only has 2% that we get, Dr. Nemeth, through the Strait of Hormuz. It goes to California. California is now getting 40 to 60% of their diesel, gasoline, and jet fuel from Asia. Where does Asia get their oil? It is a global market. Asia gets 70% of their oil from the Strait of Hormuz, ballpark number, depending on where everything is going on. So you have China that had been importing in oil from Venezuela and Iran. That China was buying 90% of Iran's 3.5 million barrels per day. So you
Yeah.
start looking at this global board of oil, and now Venezuela was doing 700,000 barrels per day, and it was going to China, but it is now going to the United States, and the United States has been selling off its SPR like
Yeah.
this is like a sale like I've never seen. This is worse than Black Fridays used to be, where you get mugged when you'd go to Target or you go to Walmart or something, and people were fighting over Christmas gifts. I don't bother doing that. It's now Amazon has ruined Black Fridays. So
Yeah.
you know it's kind of like wiping it all out. So you take a look at all these chess pieces moving around the board. I say on the podcast all the time, energy security starts at home, but your energy dominance is displayed through your exports.
Yeah.
And so what we are seeing is more and more countries are going to be setting aside money for their SPR development and projects to start drilling at home. You're going to start seeing more projects drilling at home, or SPRs being built, or refineries being built. There's 2 new refineries in Africa being built. You're starting to look at new refineries there. Where this is also playing out is you're seeing the same dichotomy of 2 groups in the world. Those that are following net zero and failure and deindustrialization, and those following, I'm going to start building energy security. Those 2 groups are also displayed in the United States in blue states versus red states.
Yeah.
So we have not only 4 groups of people in the world. You have net zero and energy security, 2 separate groups. Then you have in the United States Democrats, or as President Trump calls them, Democrats. And I love that name, by the way. Holy smokes, Batman. And now when you take a look at how we even have, I can't believe that the New York City has got who ever thought that a a Democrat socialist is actually a thing? It's not. He's a communist. He
Yeah.
is absolutely going to wipe out New York. So
Yeah.
how all this plays into the oil market right now is very complicated, because Qatar Energy has had 2 of their trains wiped out. How much oil we are now going to be mixing in the oil mix around the world, a combination mix of how much oil has been hurt through demand destruction because of high prices. We are at $89, $87 today, WTI. It is now, paper is 114 versus physical. That's paper. Physical delivery is 114. So when you talk about that, you got Brent at 120 to 140. I've even seen deliveries of tankers at $200 a barrel. So now
Wow.
we're sitting there thinking, okay, how's all this going to play in? You have Germany that is trying to fill, you have the EU trying to fill their natural gas. Their natural gas is now having to come in out of LNG, and they're not going to be wiping out the imports from Russia. Let's throw Russia into this discussion here for half a sec. President Putin just met with President Xi. They signed, I believe, 30 documents between China and Russia. What's missing? The authorization for the Siberian 2 pipeline. That was a critical omission, and the Chinese don't have omissions by mistake. So it was not approved. The Siberia 2 pipeline would have replaced everything that was going on from Gazprom's production to the EU, and life would have been glorious for Russian and their income and GDP.
So why do you think they didn't sign it? Was it because Russia wanted higher prices and China, I think, was hoping to get a sweet deal because Russia had been, all these sanctions against them in the world market. So did the price just not meet what China had expected?
You nailed it. It is a power play.
Yeah.
If Russia subjugates itself to China, they become a subservient, and that is not in Russia's. We also have Russia signing a deal, I believe, 2 days ago with Kazakhstan exporting a nuclear power plant. So when you take a look at export as a service, exporting your nuclear power plants is a huge deal. Now throw NATO into the mix, and you have Turkey trying to own the world. Turkey wants to be the next leader of the free world. And if I wanted to be as Mike Myers, and I want to do the incredible evil Mr. Man, that's who Turkey wants to be. They want to be the natural gas bypass system for the entire world. That's their goal. They are the only NATO member that it was helping Iran, giving coordinates and everything else. They are a mess. Turkey is one not to do a deal with. Personal opinion.
So, with the Strait of Hormuz, the way things have been playing out, and you talked specifically about the oil differences and whatnot, LNG is affected as well because Qatar was shipping a lot of their LNG through there. And I'm wondering what you think. Like, I know the EU is scrambling. They just Germany signed an agreement with. So when all these sanctions happened against Russia, Gazprom in Germany was nationalized, and the German government took over whatever assets Gazprom had, and they created some new name, whatever, but it's the old Gazprom. And they signed an agreement with this consortium that has an LNG facility that they're building in Canada called Cassilisms, and that's on the coast of British Columbia on the Pacific. And the other day they signed this agreement of 20 years apparently for Canada to supply natural gas in addition to the other 4 agreements that Germany has signed with various natural gas producers in British Columbia. And they're going to run that gas on tankers through the Panama Canal and over to Germany. And so, if the Strait of Hormuz issue hadn't happened and losing the Qatari LNG and other LNG that's been heading to the EU, I don't know if they would have been signing these kinds of agreements with Canada. What do you think?
I don't think so. I think, but when you take a look, I think you just brought up one of the main talking points I'm writing several articles on, and that is the countries are starting to invest in huge projects to avoid choke points. You still have a choke point with that contract.
With the Panama Canal, of course.
And the Panama Canal still has China owning both ends of the Panama Canal. President Trump has not fixed that yet.
I thought he did.
He did.
I thought the government of Panama did something.
Oh, we put all our troops down there, and it's effectively made a negating movement there. But you still have a choke point. You still have whether or not is the U.S. in control of it? I'd have to say 50-50. Is it going to be a problem? Could be.
Yeah.
If China started flexing its muscles. Let's say Taiwan. I have a feeling, this is just a personal opinion. I don't have anything to base this off of. But I'm wondering, did President Trump just give Taiwan back to, are we going to even go to war over this? Because I see the way it's shaping out. That is a choke point for the United States, and I think we are going to be taking the United States is going to be really going after North America and South America. And if we don't, why is the United States now at 50% of our chips are now re-onshored by now? We hope to have the rest of our 50% I used to work for Intel, and Intel had our plants going into China, and I got in trouble because I asked a question. It's kind of dumb, isn't it? Intel did not like people asking that question, saying, hey, why are we putting plants in China? We are going to have our plants up to whatever we need to do in re-onshoring probably in the next 2 years. So is it 2 years before that? Are we going to just hand Taiwan back to, I don't know. What to watch for, Dr. Nemeth, is going to be, do we sign that new weapons agreement with Taiwan? There's a huge one that he has not signed yet. That one is a telling feature to me.
Yeah, I think, yeah, I'm not sure. It depends on what in the agreement is delivery dates, because so much of the weaponry has been expended in both the Ukraine and in this operation in Iran, that do they have the weapons to provide to Taiwan? And do they want to make that known? So I don't know. It's an interesting situation. I'm not sure. I'll have to watch and see if your prediction is correct, Stu.
I don't know yet. I don't know enough. I'm just opening this up as a discussion because as I watch world events, I watch world markets, and I try to put patterns together. I'm seeing a
Yeah,
pattern. We
yeah.
are onshoring all of our chips. Who makes
I
most of the chips?
Yeah, I mean, right now, Taiwan, it makes most of the global supply. I know they make a few in the European Union. One of the issues there, the superconductor factories are very small because of energy, the energy situation and needing affordable energy and whatnot. I know that the United States was setting some up. I think it was the Intel factory, and there was another one in Arizona, was it? Maybe,
Phoenix.
and Texas. Yeah.
Yep.
Um, and I think
Yeah.
Westinghouse may have been involved with that. I remember Brookfield investing in that a couple years ago. But from what I understand in the statistics, it's the United States is making about 13% of global supply. But what does that mean in terms of how much America uses? So I don't know.
The
I don't
numbers
know
are
for sure.
we are achieving 50% this year.
Like 50% for what America
Made in the
uses.
yes, in the US.
Okay. Right. Which is what is required for a lot of the different defense applications. And so it makes
Ding.
complete sense, to be building your own have your own supply chain for defense
Within
equipment. And
2
this
years, you will probably see us be a lot higher than that with what's being built.
yeah,
We just
hopefully.
had some of
Yeah.
our GDP numbers and things coming out, and what I'm watching is also how much manufacturing is being reshored into the United States. There is not another country reshoring manufacturing of all types.
Yeah.
I mean, I got to hand it to President Trump. His administration is the most fun administration I've ever seen. They are absolutely a hoot. Just watching them. I mean, when you've got the greatest Secretary of Energy, Chris Wright, then you've got Secretary Burgum, and then you've got uh, Vice President Vance is an absolute hoot. I mean, that man is out doing chest bumps at the Air Force Academy with the
Yeah.
graduates. That is absolutely pretty cool. So, I mean, what a fun group! And Secretary Besant is absolutely one of the most evil, funny Secretary of Treasuries I have ever. I would never want to make that man mad because
Yeah.
he has wiped out countries and knows how to do it. So,
Yeah.
I'm hoping that they go after all of the NGOs and they start tracking down people who are funding riots in the U.S., and I hope they absolutely eviscerate anybody that is funding this bull hockey.
Yeah, I hope so. I think you have to fundamentally revise how charities are considered to be charities. And we have the same issue in Canada, where there's a lot of NGOs, non-governmental organizations that claim charity status or nonprofit status that really shouldn't. They shouldn't be. But that's a political question that I don't think is on high enough on the radar, I guess is one way to look
Nope.
at it. You
No.
know, you mentioned Secretary Wright, who's the Secretary of Energy for the United States, and with all of these different things happening in the world, America's positioned to be, of course, a major beneficiary. They're a top producer and an exporter. So, in this moment, how is the Trump administration leveraging this for American energy dominance, particularly with the LNG exports? Is there enough openness for increasing production? For what sort of advantages are there for investing in increasing natural gas production to assist in increasing exports?
You bring up about 16 major points, and I love it because energy security starts at home, but your energy dominance is displayed through your exports is truly being displayed right now. You had 61 VLCCs show up to buy oil from the United States. How much of it was actually from either Venezuela or from the SPR, or how much of it was light sweet crude that is actually a competitive blend is from Syria. You got to go figure out where the blends actually kind of mix
Yeah.
and what's being exported. But President Trump, brilliantly, we have what this horrific law called the Jones Act, which prohibits any intra shipping between states unless it is a flagged American ship built by American and owned by America and crewed by America. And it is a abysmal law that we need to buy tankers and then get rid of that law because we don't make tankers in the United States. So how can we be energy dominant and really wipe out everybody else on the planet, so to speak? Not wipe them out, but wipe them out through business. And that is when you don't own any tankers.
Yeah.
You are beholden to the Strait of Hormuz is not controlled by the the Iranians. It's controlled by Lloyd's of London. Don't kid yourself. The reason there are no tankers going through is because the President Trump created the insurance policy program, and it was funded, and it's got the money there, and the insurance company is Chubb. It's already ready to go, and they've done zero policies.
Why?
So, huh?
Why haven't there been any policies taken if the insurance is there?
If you're a tanker captain and you have been told by the Lloyd's of London you will never get another insurance policy from Lloyd's of London if you buy one from Chubb, what do you do? So
Yeah.
you've got the tanker owners. There's roughly, make no mistake, there is a close tie between the UK and Iran.
Well, I mean, the current supreme leader was living in London for the longest time.
Yep.
So there is that. There is that.
There's a lot more there, and I don't know that we need to go into it now, but I'll tell you, when you take a look at how the oil market started in 1906, I believe, back then, and they still there. I did not know, Tammy, that the United States still is controlling the Iraq money.
Yeah. Yeah, I knew that.
I didn't know it until a few weeks ago, and all of a sudden I'm sitting there kind of going, we still control after the Iraq war, but it was set up through the Fed, and the Fed is an independent company that is not controlled by the US government. So
Yeah.
I think the only way the Iranian war is going to truly be over and that there is no controls placed on or problems with traffic is if the Venezuelan style controls are placed on Karg Island. Karg Island is 90% of their export facility.
Yeah.
And if those go through the Bank of Qatar, that goes through the U.S. Secretary, that is the Department of Treasuries. It does not go through the Fed. It is controlled by Secretary Bessent. That is a different fund, a different setup, and it's working in Venezuela. Venezuela understands that they don't want to be Maduro'd. But Iran thinks they have allies in the UK. And I think that they, as long as they have that tie and they think that they can do what they want, they have absolutely zero intention of doing that. And you have the Lloyds of London tied into this. So it's a mess.
Well, I think there's also the religious and ideological aspect that tends to get underplayed because the IRGC is like they're crazy. They're part of this extreme Islamic element, and
Absolutely.
what are the like? They don't want to have an agreement. And if you think about how Islam works, whenever Trump talks about, well, we're going to have a deal, we're going to have a peace deal and whatnot. If you're suing for peace, you're weak. And I think they believe that they're in the winning position. That they have
when did the
the hand.
IRGC get installed?
Wasn't it with the 1979 revolution?
Who installed them?
Well, I know there's lots of different discussions about who installed them, but what's your theory?
My theory is it was a combination of the UK and Carter in the United States. So the United States worked with the UK and installed them, in my opinion. And
why would they do that?
It was dumb. And I think regime change needs to happen from the Iranian people, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, the 1979 situation, it was, under the Nixon doctrine and the twin pillar policy, since the United States' oil production was in decline, they were looking to find some other means to balance the world global oil markets. And America could no longer be the swing supplier. And the deal was that Saudi Arabia would be the swing supplier. They would be the stable one who would ensure that the free world was supplied and to sort of inch out the Soviet oil that was flooding the markets and whatnot and coming into Eastern Europe and whatever. And then the second pillar of it was Iran. And Iran was supposed to be the military arm that would help protect Saudi Arabia and the Middle East. And that would enable the United States to kind of back off. And because the UK at the time was saying they were pulling out all their ships from the Middle East, and it was going to leave this huge security gap. And it was like, who's going to fill that vacuum? Because when the UK was pulling out, which was supposed to be by 1971, who would fill that gap? And so it was supposed to be Iran would be the military that would help protect the Middle East once the UK had pulled out, because the United States didn't want to do it. They were stuck in Vietnam. There were all these different things happening. They needed to make sure that the Soviet Union wasn't going to do anything. And so that was the deal that Nixon had set up. And then when you had the Iranian crisis, it was like, holy cow, there's the the defensive part is now gone. And who's going to be protecting the Middle East now? It once again it created this chaos. And so I find it interesting if that was really the UK or the CIA or whoever behind it, kind of makes no sense, because unless they wanted to pull the American military in under the Carter Doctrine to be policing the Middle East, maybe. I don't know.
There's a lot of questions, and I think follow the money. I think Secretary Bessent knows who's in control.
Yes. And maybe that'll come out 20 years from now when the historians go through the archives, if there's still archives around, to
Yeah,
be able
AI is
to
going to wipe them all out.
wipe them all out. It'll all get deleted or something, and we'll have no memory. But to bring this back to the United States, I know that you talk a lot on Energy Newsbeat about California and the mess that is California, and how they're really facing this kind of self-inflicted refining crisis. There's the closure of Phillips 66 Wilmington refinery and and Valero's Benicia facility, which removes nearly 20% of the state's capacity, if not more. So,
They
how
have
does this situation fit in with America's overall energy security and national defense?
That's why I'm disappointed in President Trump going saying we don't need any oil. Hogwash, President Trump. You don't understand the oil market. ESG, Dr. Nemeth, actually did good things for the United States oil companies, both private and public. It installed corporate governance and giving money back to shareholders. What makes the United States more different than any other country in the world? And it's the royalty rights that are paid out. 50% of the oil and gas that is done in the United States is done out of private companies based off of tax incentives that are not uh, subsidies. That is a huge difference. You got to make money in order to have a tax break when you invest in oil and gas in the United States. That is one of the main reasons. Specifically to California, Gavin Newsom eviscerated, I mean, totally wiped out their Kern County used to be the number one oil producing area in the United States, more than Alaska, more than Texas. Texas just thinks we're big. I'm sitting here
Yeah.
in Abilene, Texas, and everybody think, oh, we just because we have big cowboy hats. No, California has more oil than actually does Texas. And in fact, it's so easy and cheap to pick up, it blobs up on the beach, Tammy.
Yeah. Yeah.
It is absolutely needs to be harvested, or you have oil leaks. California had ballpark 38 refineries. They got a lot of their oil out of the Alaska pipeline. My grandfather was one of the chief geologists who discovered the North Slope up in Alaska. I loved all my trips going up to Alaska. Loved flying up in there, and actually sold equipment to the Alaska Pipeline Group. Love my snow Texans up there, as I call anybody north of the border up there. And I love my Albertans too. That's a whole nother discussion. But when you sit back and take a look at how California has now, they went from 15,000 permits a year, 15,000 wells. Gavin Newsom went down to 24 in 2024 or 2025. He went down to 24. And then they even got those stonewalled. They just put in a bill in December of 2025 that was signed into law in 2026 and said, here's 2,000 permits that need to be issued for Kern County. Kern County got none so far.
Wow.
0 permits.
Wow.
So then you have Sable Offshore. Sable Offshore is now capable of delivering, I believe, 35,000 barrels per day off of the offshore coming into the pipeline. The pipeline just got sued by Gavin Newsom to be shut down, so they can shut that down. Here's where California gets ugly. 40 to 60% of their mix between jet fuel, diesel, and gasoline, depending on what time of the year and what mix. They are at their 100% maximum capability of import right now. If they lose any more of their 7 refineries that are left, 6 have said they're closing. If they lose one of those, it drives the price to a huge increase. That's how bad we are right now. There are 7 or 8 executive orders to federalize the program and get rid of the carbon buffer, carbon crap, bull hockey stuff that they've done, that Gavin Newsom has copied from the EU and the
Yeah.
UK. Same language. Oh,
Yeah.
I'm going to replace the UK with California. That's how smart he is. Search and replace, and it is absolutely a horrific system. We are watching deindustrialization copy Germany just had a 30% increase or problem this past week with their wind farm. Rutro, they are now deindustrializing and they cannot even get enough gas.
Yeah.
California is not just a problem for California. You have New Mexico, you have Arizona that import off of California's refineries. You have Oregon and Washington that are also, they also have the same rules and regulations. And there's one company that owns a refinery up in Washington. It affects the entire West Coast. The entire
Yeah.
West Coast is about to go down in the next 3 weeks. Sorry, I went to OSU. I can't count. I have to hold up my hand and go through there. So Oklahoma State does not teach us how to read or write. You know, they teach us how to shoot. They did not teach us how to do anything else other than just shoot. I'm kidding. But when you take a look at how bad the net zero policies of the left have happened, we just had Exxon leave, and the shareholders voted to leave New Jersey and go to Texas.
Yeah.
Chevron left. You look at the amount of businesses that have left California and are leaving, the tax base is leaving all blue states.
Yeah, and it's not surprising. I mean, now California has this uh referendum sort of, or this initiative on the ballot in November to have this one time wealth tax on the assets, like everything that rich
It
people
won't be a
own.
one. It won't
Yeah,
be a one time, and it
yeah,
will go.
exactly.
And it will go to anybody that owns a house. It will go to in so if you
Yeah.
are breathing in California, you will be impacted.
Yeah, and I mean, if you're an auditor, this is great because you'll have to go and inventory everybody's stuff. You'll have to audit their thing. So yeah, it'll be creating all kinds of new jobs that, is this part of the net zero anti-capitalist thing, the kinds of jobs they create. I mean, just kind of funny.
It's unbelievable, but what people are realizing is that governments need to take care of their citizens. Energy crises result in regime changes.
Sometimes. Sometimes. I don't see that happening in the EU. They've been undergoing really an energy crisis for a long time. Um,
I
like
think
here in
you're
the
going
UK, for example, it's been hot all week. Today's a nice day, a little bit breezy, but all week there was really no wind. I
Tommy
think,
Robinson, there was a huge outpouring in the millions of people marching in the UK. I think UK is destined to take their country back. I hope.
I hope, but I mean, that's unrelated really to energy. It's more about the migration, the illegal migration that's happening in the
It's all
UK.
related, Tammy.
It's interrelated, but yeah, we'll see what happens with that. But with respect to uh I guess we're heading towards record natural gas output projections for the United States in 2026. And, we have the surging demand for AI data centers, and they're looking for reliable energy, of course. Is the American infrastructure ready for this, or are we
No.
headed for bottlenecks?
Yes. You've got a 5-year wait on gas turbines. I did not have on my bingo card 2 weeks ago. I wrote an article on Caterpillar. Caterpillar has
Yeah,
surged by being one of the main suppliers. And then, like 3 weeks before that, I wrote an article that they're now stripping jet engines out of the U.S. military boneyard and
yeah,
turning those into power plants.
yeah,
Holy smokes. Now that's a business.
yeah. I
Sending
mean,
a crew to go get a turbine out of a boneyard B-52 that's been sitting there, or a B-47. Oh, yeah, nice. Okay. Hey, if
well,
it works.
you can also string together micro generators. So I think is that what you're talking about with
Yes.
Caterpillar? Yeah,
Yes. When you take a look at Caterpillar's at Stargate, they have about 50 different natural gas turbines that they're lining up, that they're going to keep on site and use those as backup generators once they get their bigger natural gas power plant online. So when you
mm,
have Chevron, and I think this is also bringing up another huge change point. So when you take a look at a oil field service company like Liberty Energy, Ron Gusick is the CEO over there. Cool cat. Love Liberty Energy. They really are doing great things. I was laughing at them years ago because they had an electric frac fleet, and they were looking at dropping in a micro nuclear reactor so they could run their frac fleet off of nuclear. Who does that?
cool. Yeah.
Oh,
Has
Secretary Chris Wright.
have those micro nuclear reactors been cleared? I mean, can you actually build that?
Oh, there's about 15 of them in process in the US right now. Nano Nuclear,
Okay.
I interviewed the CEO. Jay Yu is the founder. And then you have Kevin, sorry, I forgot his name, but the CEO. They have actually a plant in Canada that they are building, and a nuclear reactor in Canada for nano nuclear. And then they are one in the US. They're approved, and they're building the factory for the same micro reactor at the same time. So they have those two going on right now. So there are a bunch of them that are out there that are in process. There are 19 nuclear reactors in the United States that are coming online. They're hopefully very soon on military bases.
Yeah.
They just brought in the USS Gerald Ford and parked it, and they're going to use it as a test case for old battleships to be parked and supply power to the city. So Russia's been doing that for several years, as they build offshore power plants and then park them out there. I mean, Russia's got 6 nuclear icebreakers.
Yeah.
Nuclear ships as power plants is not new, but it's going to start really happening. I think that nuclear is truly where people need to go.
I read an article this morning about a proposal to put floating nuclear power um, offshore Greece in the
Yep.
islands around there, which would be fascinating to see. I mean, um, how would you connect that and secure that? Because, like, it's one thing if you have a nuclear power plant inland, which is, you can protect that to some extent from hostile actors but if it's offshore, then that makes it more difficult. I think it makes it more vulnerable from a security perspective. And what happened? Yeah. So I don't know how that will advance. There's always a lot of these ideas that come out, and they talk about it a lot, and then it actually doesn't happen. So, I mean,
I
what's
think
your
we
sense for nano nuclear, for example? Do you think this is actually gonna get
I
approved
think
and be built?
I they're in process. So it is in the approval process. They are approving. They're hitting every milestone, and so I think offshore. Here's war has changed. War is now drones, and instead of
Yeah.
$1 million missile trying to knock down a golden dome, it is now lasers. Direct energy weapons are now live.
Yeah.
You have rail guns on the U.S. Navy. You have things that are changing, and so you're going to have a a cargo container roll up. It can go to a truck in about a flatbed truck in 2.5 seconds, and you have 1,000 drones come rolling out of a cargo ship that can be deployed anywhere. You have the Lockheed Martin Lamprey, which is a new device that will, it's like a torpedo, but it will go and attach itself to a container ship and then just travel along as a magnetic mine on the bottom of it. And then once it gets to its location, drop down and then go do its thing and then wipe something out or put in an electronic countermeasure there. Everything's changed.
Yeah.
It goes
Yeah.
back to energy security.
Yeah, exactly. Because without the energy security, if you don't have your own reliable, affordable, secure supply, it makes it very difficult to be able to build out the defense products that you need in order to wage the new modern warfare. Especially, drones, they take batteries. And so what's the supply chain like to make those batteries and all the other components that are hydrocarbon derived?
I got to
Um,
hand it to Elon. Elon has built the Tesla lithium factory in Texas, and he has a complete lithium. He's got it cradle to grave lithium mine, building it
yeah.
and building it out. So as long as we have companies that are doing that, I don't think the EU is going to. The EU, yeah, the Europe is absolutely eviscerated their manufacturing. It is absolutely mind-boggling to me, and I have a feeling that you're going to see the United States either withdraw from NATO fully or partially, and I see the world changing. And the EU had better just wake up and realize that the United States is changing. We are no longer going to be bankrolling other people's defense. And so people need to understand they've got to come up with their own defense. I mean, you have the HMS Dragon was the only ship that was able to be sailed out of the UK, and it had a water distillation problem.
Yeah.
So the UK is going to need the UK is going to need some extra work. The EU is absolutely not able to defend itself right now.
Yeah. And which is kind of it's kind of interesting that the EU leadership is looking to Germany to arm. And but the thing is, do they have the manufacturing capacity to do it? There's all these energy issues that they've been deindustrializing for a long time. Now they're talking about retooling the automotive manufacturers in Germany for defense production, but I'm not sure what the progress is on that, if it's been going forward. Um, and now they're looking to Canada to help. And I'm like, Canada's a basket case. We have a terrible military for equipment. The people are good, but their equipment has been terrible for 40 years, 20 years. And I don't know. We're supposedly signing all these agreements. We're participating in the European defense production funding, financing, whatever. I just
And
don't see. I'll cross my fingers and hope that maybe they'll produce something that's useful. But for the most part, Canada's military has suffered from years and years, decades of being neglected.
and There's a new discovery off of oil off of Greenland, and the United States is now taking a bigger role in Greenland quietly. It's not in the mainstream news. I did visit with the CEO 3 weeks ago of a new development up there that's even bigger than the North Slope of Alaska. And so you take a look at that, and the United States is already there and starting to roll it out. So Greenland is going to be taken advantage of. I mean, excuse me, be used by the United States. And I think that I would like to see Alberta finish their vote and become independent and not a 51st state. I think that if the Albertans did vote for independence, and then they approached the United States and said, would you put a military base here? The military base in Germany adds, I believe, $2 billion a year in Ramstein Air Force Base to the local economy. Close that Ramstein Air Force Base down. Close the ones in Spain that are communist and don't want to have anything to do with us. Fine. Knock yourselves out. Have a great life. And then let's go put a very nice big military base in Alberta and really enjoy snow Texas. And, I think it'd be fantastic. So I see the world is changing with energy at the core of all those decisions.
Which is, very fascinating because we've talked about the net zero forced energy transition for a long time. This brainchild of the EU and the UN and trying to get all the different countries to sign on to it. And under Biden, the United States was pushing forward to adopting the net zero direction, which is it's been devastating for Europe and the UK and to Canada to some extent. It's gutted our economy. At the same time, they say it creates jobs and all this, but what kind of jobs? And makes you vulnerable. So, if these European countries and Canada and the UK, they want to go down that route, and the two different geopolitical developments, the Russia attack on Ukraine, this event in Iran, should be bringing home to people the importance of having reliable, affordable energy. And yet they're still stonewalling increased production in the North Sea in the UK, offshore production in the EU. Although Germany is like, maybe we should start exploring for natural gas on land because apparently they do have, it's projected they do have some significant fields up in Niedersachsen. But they talk a lot. And I'm not sure if they'll actually do what's required. What do you think?
I am stunned by the UK shutting down the North Sea and buying Norway's gas. Same field. I don't get it. The windfall profit tax that they are putting on it. Let's take BP for a second. British Petroleum, a landmark company for the UK. You have the chairman ousted, and he's trying to do good things, and they're trying to get away from renewable energy, and they're trying to make money for the shareholders and try to do more oil and gas development, and they're being eviscerated. So you sit back and look at why would any oil company want to stay in the UK? If I was
Well,
a oil company, I would be leaving the UK.
well, the interesting thing about BP and what's been happening with their chairman who got turfed after the shareholder meetings, and that was the institutional investors, the pension funds from the UK and Europe, who
Who
said, "No, we
controls
want
them?
more climate. We want more climate stuff. Don't back off." And now they're trying to say that he had governance issues and was being mean or something, and that's why they had to get rid of him. And I'm like, no, this is the institutional investors, the big pension funds in the UK that are fully committed to net zero. And they don't care if it means that, that the company no longer exploits oil and gas the way it was designed to do, to develop it and produce it and add it to the market to help lower prices and whatnot. They don't care, which I find fascinating because this will affect those pension funds because you'll end up reducing the share value of the company, which means your return on investment is going to be diminished, and they don't seem to care.
Let,
So I don't know. Is I don't know what the
let me
solution is to
let
that
me
one.
throw this at you. I had Dr. Gene Nelson on my podcast, who is a nuclear scientist. He's a cool cat. He has his
Yeah,
own Substack. He's out always advocating for nuclear, but he made a statement and he said he can prove it. Any grid that has wind and solar as major components produces more CO2 than a grid without it. And when you take a look at the 50 megahertz and the 60 megahertz systems, the grids that are built in the UK, EU, and the United States, you throw wind and solar onto that, and then you have to have the additional equipment added to it, the additional costs, the additional gigawatts of material, the on off of the natural gas turbines. The UK, I believe, is still 33% net gas. So
yeah,
when you sit back and take a look at 33% net gas, how come that thing's burning more? It's because it's having to spin up, spin down, spin up, spin down. You've got a asynchronous grid machine that is being abused by being turned on and turned off and turned on and turned off.
yeah.
It is a carbon increasing design by adding wind and solar. So if people were realistic and they wanted to sit down and say, let's get to net zero, I'm going to ask, why is the world getting greener? Because plants like CO2. That's not the pollution. Let's have a real discussion about what's pollution. It's the particulate matter in all of these things. That's the real pollution. So you can do coal, but get rid of the particulate matter that leaves and do clean coal is cleaner than a grid with wind and solar. I'll stand behind that one.
And that's so true. And it's interesting because China argues that all of the new coal power plants that they're building deploy clean coal technology. And therefore, their emissions are significantly reduced. They don't have the particulate matter and all that kind of thing. Um, but that never gets discussed in the broader narrative about the energy transition. They always talk about all the wind and solar that China produces and and whatnot.
I,
But you mentioned Scotland, and one of the fascinating things there is Catherine Porter gave a talk the other day from her hospital bed.
we're praying for
Unfortunately,
her, by the way. I
yeah,
hope she does do well.
yeah, I do too as well. I hope that her recovery is expeditious and that she recovers well. But she warned them that in the next, I think, 5 years or something like that, Scotland will be shutting down its last natural gas power plant and its nuclear power plants, and it will only be run on wind and solar, primarily wind. And
This is
and
the
she's like
same
this.
this is the same Scotland that was using incredible amounts of diesel to turn their wind turbines on because there wasn't enough wind and their diesel bills were going through the roof. Same Scotland that took
Same Scotland.
14 million trees down to put in wind to only increase electricity costs. Same Scotland.
Yeah. Yeah,
I,
that same Scotland with the North Sea and Aberdeen right there, with natural gas right there, and she's warning them like if you shut down that reliable power, you're going to destabilize the grid, and you're going to destabilize it. It'll be worse than what happened in Spain, and it will have this ripple effect across the entire UK because so much of the entire UK grid is dependent in some respect to the Scottish wind power that comes on, and I think they have hydro as well. But in any event, she's warning this could be potentially catastrophic.
Hyd-
And what the heck are you
hyd-
doing?
Hydro turbines can do the asynchronous turbinization and stabilization of the grid, but when you're within nanoseconds
Yeah,
of trying to maintain a certain frequency on a grid, it is not going to happen.
yeah.
And when you take a look, I want to give Joe Leather's podcast a shout out. I was on his podcast just recently. Joe Leather, Wind Waves, I believe, and something or other is he's a very nice guy. He works on wind turbines and in the oil field. So he's got a great podcast. I'll shoot you and him a note, Joe Leather, and I'll shoot you an intro note. I think that he would be a great guest for you as well.
Awesome. I would love to talk to him. He sounds like a fascinating character, just like you, Stu.
Oh, I don't know about fascinating, but at least entertaining, I think, is a better word. I do appreciate you and your leadership, and I always love being on the energy realities with you and Irina Slav and David Blackman. I always feel like I'm the stooge in the corner that have to get to hang out with the smart kids in the room.
Oh, no, you're being so humble. No way. So, look, as we wrap up here, you interview a lot of incredible people on the energy news beat, a lot of sharp minds and whatnot. And is there like one big math ain't mathin' moment in today's energy world that frustrates you the most?
There's so many, Tammy, that right now I think people don't like me speaking my truth. And I am attacked, and I know by who. And it really just drives me nuts when I sit back and say there are new trading blocks forming around the world. Those new trading blocks are based on energy policies. And it really is absolutely mind opening to find out who's attacking you.
Hmm.
One of the greatest exports that the UK has is Wallace and Gromit. I absolutely love Wallace and Gromit and Monty Python, two of the greatest exports ever created in the UK. But one of the greatest Wallace and Gromit's character is a sheep named Ed Miliband. And that man is probably going to be your next prime minister. He's the last man standing that may be there. And that man absolutely is got the least single understanding of how the world works on energy. I've seen interviews on him, and I am stunned by his unmitigated stupidity of being able to understand how natural gas is priced. I
Yeah.
don't understand this man. I feel sorry for the UK as he may be your next prime minister. Unbelievable that I would even say that. That man should be a cast character as a sheep in a Wallace and Gromit film, not the energy secretary for the UK.
It's the
Sorry.
Department of Energy Security and Net Zero, which is the most oxymoronic title of a department I've ever heard. Because you can't have energy security with net zero.
But you know
I
how
know,
close the United States is to following that?
I know, I know. You were doing it while Biden was there.
We are Leader Thune in the United States has not passed the Save America Act. We have so much voting corruption in the United States that if we don't get this done, we will be following the UK and the EU, and then we'll be pulling out of NATO because we'll be bankrupt.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, what's one last question? What's one under the radar story or trend that listeners should be paying attention to, but it isn't getting enough headlines? What's one thing?
Prepare your homes for a disaster. Honestly,
Any kind of disaster, right?
you should be ready to defend your home at any point. Your home is your castle. I love that line out of, every man's home out of Mel Gibson's movie is his castle, out of one of those movies. It's just, it is true. Nobody is talking about preparedness to have your own grid, to be able to survive 2 to 3 months on your own and be there for your neighbors. Be a support factor. Have communities. Be ready for emergencies. Share a Starlink in your community. Make sure one person can get out to the internet, and then that way you can do that. Nobody's talking about self-reliance no matter what happens. The government, no matter what country you're in, is not going to be there for you in a natural disaster or a man-made disaster. And there is potential for all of that. And I think that's the number one thing that is not discussed.
That is a great point to end on. Be prepared. Boy Scout motto. Make sure you've got at least a couple weeks of food and whatnot, and fresh water stored up, probably longer.
Months.
I don't know if that's possible here in the UK. People just don't have enough space. But yeah, coming from the prairies where there's tornadoes and potential disasters in the wintertime with blizzards and everything, we grew up always having a big pantry, a big storage room where you were ready, you were prepared. So
Yep.
good advice. Thank you,
Thank you.
Stu.
Thank you for having me on. I really appreciate your energy, leadership, and everything that you do.
Well, thank you. I appreciate you, and we always have so much fun on Energy Realities. So, as a wrap, where can people find you, Stu?
People can find me on theenergynewsbeat.substack.com or energynewsbeat.co or energynewsbeat.com. So just any of those places.
That's awesome. I love your Substack. You always have great updates every day, lots of updates during the day of all the breaking news and your analysis and interpretation, which are always really well thought out and some good insights there. So please check it out.
Entertaining.
And it's entertaining. And yeah, have a great weekend, and I'll see you on Monday.